Hey there. I just wanted to share with you something that's working really well in my online or my distant learning classes. And hopefully it's something that you can use easily as well. So I've got a few documents here, but there's some other things that you'll need for this project. In order to execute this project successfully, you're going to need a few things. These are just things that I found that I needed, and if you don't need them, then that's cool. But if you can find a way around them, that's awesome. So one thing you might need if you have them at your house are some like a little whiteboard or several of them. I think I have maybe 6 or 8 of those. Some markers, different colors, a little hand towel, a little washcloth for cleaning off the whiteboard, so you don't have to go with your white shirt. And let's see what else you need. You might want to use, I'm using cardstock also, just to put some of my high frequency stuff. And I'm just using cardstock that I cut in half. And so they're nice and big and the students can see them really well. You also, this is really important. You might want some dog treats. You want some dog treats because if your dog's anything like mine, as soon as you give the most important part of the lesson, your dog's gonna bark and it's gonna ruin everything. So you need the dog treats. Maybe your dog's perfect. My dog's not perfect. So let's see what else. For these days, you might want some hand cream, some hand lotion. I know that my hands get really dry and then I get fiddling with them and stuff like that. So you also, really, really important is a good candy bar. My sweet husband brought this home for me the other day. Yay, payday. I love payday. You have your candy bar of choice or snack of choice just to make you happy. And maybe finally, you need some Daydreams and Ice Cream foaming mousse hand sanitizer. There you go. You might need some of that. Just kidding. Most of that stuff you don't need, but I did. Okay, so you're looking at a few documents here, a few things, a few of my resources. This first one is how this started. This is where my idea began, and I sent out a Google form, not quiz form. I didn't make it a quiz. Let's see if I can, I think it's under settings. If I went to settings, if I went to settings, it says general or presentation or quizzes. If you wanted to make a quiz where you actually have point values for your questions, then you would do that. But for this purpose, we don't need point values. So this is I call it the Daily Accountability Google Form, DAGF, and this ever since we started distance learning, this is part of their requirement every day. This is kind of like me doing attendance, but on this particular day, when I sent this one out on the 2nd of April, I collected a little more information than the usual. If you choose to do this activity, I would recommend that if it's not already collecting their email, then you might want to put in a special question where it says, what is your school email? But you'll have your first name, the last name of the student, and all these ones with a star are the ones that they have to respond to. And then their email address, which class they're in. All of my accountability forms, just one of their first questions is, how are you today? And then when I go to responses, I'm not going to go to responses because then you'll see the names of my students and their emails. But when I go to responses, I can see how they're doing. And if they're sick or things like that, then I can reach out to them and say, oh, I'm so sorry you're sick. So here is where the activity that I'm sharing with you kind of starts. The first question was, ¿Cuál es el personaje? What is the character? And I told them in a separate note in their Google Classroom stream, I told them that there were going to be some random questions on this form and that they were just to respond with their favorite. There's no right or wrong answer, and that they just should respond with the one they like best, the answer that they like best. So what's the character? The first thing they chose was a character, and for this, I put pictures in there. You're able to put pictures in there. And so I put them in there to help them because some of it might be, some of it is obvious or cognates, but un tuerto, I think my third and fourth year knew what that word was, but probably not my first. And so then you have different questions. There's a whole bunch of information I'm just gathering. What does the character want? Love, a hamburger, a rocket, or hand sanitizer? Pick a city, and I have Bryce Hedstrom's book that has cool stuff for Spanish class. I have his book, and in there's a section with city names that are odd or different or unusual. And so I went through there and I just picked funny names of cities. And a lot of them chose Crapple, Maryland. Or Dead Man Crossing. Anyway, a Spanish speaking country, they were able to pick one of those, a mode of transportation, a famous person. They're able to pick all that. A favorite color, a favorite pastime, activity to pass the time. If I wasn't sure if some of them would know what the word pastime was. Oh gosh, in English. A natural disaster. Their favorite song from March Madness with music, with the songs that before we got cut off. Some weather, what kind of weather was it? And an emotion or a feeling. And that was the end of it. And so they filled this out. That was their daily accountability Google form. And then I was able to go into the responses. And when you go into responses, if I were to go in there, you would see a little green box at the top. And if you click on that, it will open up a spreadsheet. And that is amazing to have that spreadsheet. And so that's going to be the next part of my Screencastify tutorial. I'll go from there, from that next step. But step one is, gathering this information. And I felt like the best way to do that was using a Google form. So step one, gather your information. And I will share this document. You can make a copy of it. You'll be forced to make a copy of it. When you open it, it will say you are being asked to make a copy of it. Just click copy, and then you'll get your own copy of it. And you can change it however your little heart desires. So there's step one. We'll be back with step two. All righty. Welcome back. So this is kind of part 1.5 because I just wanted to show you something really quickly. I told you in part 1 of the distance learning story asking tutorial that over here I have my WHS DAGF, the daily accountability. Oh, I can't talk today. Oh my goodness. The daily accountability Google form. And I mentioned that if you click on responses up at the top, it will have a little green box. And this is what that little green box looks like. And when you click on that, it gives me this nice spreadsheet. Hang on one second. I'm going to put me over here. I'm going to put me right in the middle. That way it looks like I'm looking at the camera. But if you can see, these are the responses that I have from one of my schools. And if I were to scroll over a little bit to the left, you would be able to see their emails and names and everything. And so the first line here is one person, and they're in third period, and these were their responses about how they were feeling. And then they picked a kangaroo, disinfectant, Crapo, Maryland, Venezuela. And so if you go on, you can see the different things that they chose. And so this is a really nice spreadsheet to be able to see all of their responses. Now, if you're able to, I would suggest making a printout of this. It was helpful for me. Some of you work better even on the screen like that, but and I know there's some little tricks that you can do to highlight the boxes and stuff so that you can see what their answers were, but I'm just more of a hands-on and a visual person. So my dear husband, because I wasn't going into school, my dear husband made a copy of the spreadsheets for me. And then what I did, and I'm going to do that next, so that'll actually be step 2 kind of. What I did next was just highlight one at a time and create a story around their responses. So I'll come back to that. Hi there again. It's Laura here. And I think this is step 2, but I honestly am losing track. Anyway, let me just recap what we've done. First thing we did, step 1, was to create a Google form which had questions like a character and a mode of transportation and what does the character want, and a city and a country and various information. You can create whatever kind of information you want for your story, but that's what I did. And then after we did that, I said step 1.5 kind of was to create a spreadsheet. And with your spreadsheet, you can look at the information that your students chose. And then kind of step 2, I didn't do on a Screencastify because I wasn't going to be sharing anything on my screen. So hopefully you're able to see that. Step 2 was a little video I made using Clip-O-Matic, and it showed my spreadsheets, and it showed that I had highlighted the choices of a few students, and then I wrote on a piece of paper. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I wrote, this is one particular student and the choices that they had made. And I did that. It's just the way that I do it. You can maybe organize it however you like to. But I like to do that because then I look at the different choices that they made and I try to envision what would make a good story. Obviously, in real story asking, you'd be trying to weave that together with your students. And this is kind of still with your students, but it also requires a little bit on your end. So in this step, which I guess technically is step 3, because we did the Google form, we talked about the spreadsheet, which is 1.5, and then I showed you my spreadsheet, which is kind of 2. So part 3, this is a story that I came up with the choices from one of my students named Fortune. And I didn't put a title in yet because I thought maybe I would give him the choice to come up with a story for it. But what I did was I took this isn't Fortune's answers, but I took his things, I just wrote a story, interweaving some, actually, I think I used all of the choices that the answers that he gave. I wove them into the story. I will make this available this one, maybe, but it's in Spanish, and so it may not be helpful to those of you who teach other languages. But it just will show you. I mean, this is just one avenue of a story. There are a gazillion ways you could go. But that's what I did for step 3 was I wrote out a story, which will be useful for many different things. I can plug it once we've worked with the story a little bit. We can plug in that information to Textivate, or I can have them do a reading comprehension. There's so any of the kind of reading follow-up activities that you would normally use, you could do using your reading. Now, I have the reading available. Partly, I wanted it available because I was going to tell the story to them on Flipgrid, which will be the next thing I'll show you. But I'm not giving them this copy yet. I don't want them to see the written version of it quite yet. You can do it however you want, but this is the way that I'm choosing to do it. I want to tell them the story as if we were in class, kind of, but it's basically just telling them the story. And I will be using Flipgrid for that, and I'll show you what I did with that next. So this is step 3. Step 3 was writing up a story using the information that I had gathered from their from the oh gosh, I'm totally blanking on the word I'm looking for. Spreadsheet. There we go. Oh my goodness. Those of you who know me know this, but I had a virtual online wedding yesterday. Not me, but my son. So precious. He and his wife now were told they had to postpone their wedding by their venue, and they just didn't want to wait to get married. So we agreed, and it was all good. It was all good. Anyway, it was a beautiful thing, but I'm a little tired today because we just had that going on, and then I was up kind of later than I normally am just watching it again and just doing all that stuff. So anyway, that's why I can't talk today. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go to the next step. I think this is step 3, if I've lost track. And then next step will be step 4, what I did for the Flipgrid. Thanks. Bye. Hey there. Well, you're still with me, it looks like. It is step 4 and of Storyasking, distance learning Storyasking. And I just wanted to share what I did in this next step using the platform Flipgrid. This Screencastify tutorial is not going to give you tips on how to set up Flipgrid. I'm assuming that you have it. If you want information about how to set it up, I can help you with that too. But that's not what the purpose of this tutorial is. So what I did after I wrote up, because remember that was step 3, was I actually had a document where I had the story that I had written up, and I needed that because I'm not a great storyteller, and I need that support. So what I did was I had them side by side, and you may already know about this extension. I didn't know about it until recently, but you can see up here I have these 2 things. These are extensions that I have gotten from the Google Chrome, the Chrome web store, and I have their extensions, add-ons that I have added on to my Google Chrome. The cut is really nice because it enables me to cut maybe I'll just do that really quickly. I'm going to move the story over here so you can kind of see what I did. I'm going to move it there. And I've got the story there. So if I do cut, it's going to basically cut my screen here. I've got my Flipgrid on this side and the story on the other, and I can kind of adjust the size of it. But that was easy for me to do that side by side so that I could basically read the story Now I'm going to stretch it out a little bit because if you get the cut extension, you also need to get the glue, because if you click on the glue, it will then put it back together magically. Isn't that super cool? Maybe you already knew about that, but I didn't know about that, so sharing it. All right, so I've got the story I already told you about in step 3. I wrote that, and that was helpful. Now I was ready to go to my Argentina grid, which in Flipgrid, a grid is basically a class. And so this is one of my classes. Their name is Argentina. I always name my classes. That's just the way I do it. But they have different topics down here. We did one called Family Matters, ones that says when you set up a new grid, it automatically puts a kind of an introductory one on here. And I use it kind of as a way for the students to practice so they don't get nervous. But you can see here in the middle is El Cuento de Fortune. And it's because I haven't assigned this yet. I haven't done anything with it. I just put it there, and I will assign it next week. So here we are at that topic. The topic is basically anything that you want to share, push out to your students, that you want them to respond to. I haven't decided what I want them to actually respond about regarding my story. I haven't decided what questions I'll ask them. I'll probably do just a couple of little questions, or have them tell me something that they liked about the story, or what was their favorite part, or something like that. But really the main purpose in the distance learning aspect is that they could hear me telling the story. And so if I click on the video, it will bring up my story, maybe shortly, like hopefully shortly. It's thinking, it's deciding whether or not it's worthy of showing. And that's questionable. Oh my goodness, there we go. There I am in all my glory. Yeah, my frizzy hair, which I don't care. Frizzy hair, don't care. Okay, so they can click on it, and esto es el cuento de Fortune. Sí, clase, es el cuento. Notice I didn't lift it up high enough because it said Fortune's el cuento de story Fortune at the bottom, but rookie move. Anyway, I'm going to pause it, but my students will be, I'm going to exit out of that. My students will be able to listen to it, watch it. They can watch it as many times as they want to, and then they will be able to answer any questions that I might pose to them. And they would do that by doing that down here below. Okay. So that's how I plan on using Flipgrid. And then I don't know if I should make it another step. Maybe I'll just share it here. But do you see here, I have attached a document. Actually, it's another form. It is a Google form, and it's right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up so you can see what it is. And this is thanks to Senora Chase, Anne-Marie Chase. If you haven't gone to her blog, or if you don't know about her, oh my goodness, she's amazing. Well, there's so many amazing ones out there. I could make a whole video just on that, but this is, I wanted to focus on her because I'm sharing something here that was original to her. This is not my idea. Normally when we're in class, if I'm doing like an assessment, a more formal assessment, not one, a formative one that's just in class, but more of a summative one, following a something that we have studied for a few days, then I might give we call them a celebration, and I call it a celebration because that was Anne-Marie's suggestion. I thought that was so sweet. So now my students know, hey, today we're going to celebrate, and they know that if they respond really enthusiastically, it's possible that I'll give one less question or so on their thing, or give them one extra credit point or something like that. So they have to respond enthusiastically. Anyway, this is a Google form version of a paper form that I would normally give them per Anne-Marie. And on the paper form, it basically has 3 levels. I'm going to go ahead and open up this so that I can kind of talk you through that. But this is a quick quiz. I hate using the word quiz, but anyway. So they'll fill out their information and what period and everything. And you'll see it says, this is for Spanish 1. There are different levels for different levels of classes, and you can find those all on her website. But this particular one is for a Spanish 1. And so here is what they have to do if they want a C on their celebration, on their quiz. If they are happy with a C, then they have to do this task. It says list 6 words that you heard and understood in when they listened to my story about by Fortune. They're supposed to listen to it and write 6 words that they understood. Write the word in Spanish and its translation in English. When I do the written version, I have a section also where they write it. They just write they listen to my whatever input I'm giving them, and then they write any words and give the English translation. But this is just a digital way of doing it. If they want to get a B, they want to do a little bit more work, then they have to fill out the C portion and they have to fill out the B portion. And so for novice mid, what they could show me to show me that they're at novice mid level for a Spanish 1 class is, after having listened to the story, be able to tell me in 1 or 2 sentences in English what they understood, the gist of it. What is the story about? And so in 2 sentences, they should be able to tell me what it's about. And also give me 6 words that they heard and what their translations are. So if they want a B, that's what they have to do. If they want to get an A on this assignment, on this celebration, then they have to do all 3 sections. Okay, the C, the B, and the A. And to show me that they would be novice high, they should do those 2 things. And what are 4 specific details that they understood? So in part B, they're giving me the gist of the story. What's the Shaq tries to escape coronavirus by going to Nicaragua, but in Nicaragua there's a hurricane, and he ends up leaving and going back to Crapple, Maryland. So that might be what they did in part B, to show me that they understood the gist of it. But here they're going to list 4 specific details that they understood. Write them in English. Remember, the more you show that you understood, the higher your grade will be. Don't just write words like you did in section C. Don't allow that. So it has to be details. For example, here's a detail that I wouldn't expect them to write in section B. Shaq took a bus to Nicaragua. That's one. Here's another detail that I might expect them to glean from it. Shaq was bored in his house and was playing Lego. There's another detail. Another detail. When he got to Nicaragua, Shaq's friend met him at the bus and wanted to high five him. Okay. Another detail. Shaq didn't want to high five. No, Shaq wanted to high five him, rather. The giant didn't want to high five because in Nicaragua there was no coronavirus. So he offered Shaq some disinfectant, hand sanitizer. So there's different details. So they should be able to share details from the story here. And then they submit that, and that I can put in there after I've looked at it and seen, if they did adequately did part C, adequately did part B, and then after I look at part A, I'm satisfied with the 4 details that they gave, then I would put that into the grade book as a summative assessment, because they can listen to that multiple times, so they should be able to do well on this. They can't submit, it depends on how you set it up, but they wouldn't be submitting multiple times the Google form, but they could listen to the Flipgrid as many times as they want, I suppose. Okay, so that is step 4. I don't know if I have another step after this. So step 4 was using the Flipgrid, and then attaching, if you want, attaching a document to the Flipgrid that takes them to kind of a quiz, a celebration, a listening celebration. So let me know if you have any questions, and I have to think, I can't remember if I need to give you another step, but as far as I know, we're done. So these are some 4 steps that you can take to kind of do story asking and give them some more input, because we know that language, foreign language, world language is acquired by more input. What they need most right now from us is more input, especially since we're not having that class time with them. They need more input. So whether it's reading or listening, they need the input to continue on their proficiency path. So there we go. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Adios.